Okay, so it's about 2:05, so I'll get the session started. Session 6A, it's my virtual world, where there will be 3 presentations giving examples of network users who are using networks to, I suppose, create new sort of innovative ways of working in their areas of work. The first of the 3 presentations this afternoon is going to be by Francisco Hernandez, who is from the virtual lab who's presenting about the virtual lab for marine modelling. Francisco is the manager of the Flanders Marine Data Centre at the Flemish Marine Institute in Ostend in Belgium. He has a master's in environmental sanitation and biology, and he has many years of experience of bioinformatics, monitoring systems, database and systems design. So he's going to present to you today about the virtual lab project.
Good afternoon. Virtual lab project is a joint project of these 4 institutes. The IODE, which stands for the International Oceanographic Data and Information Exchange Program of IOC. And IOC is the Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO. And JCOM is a joint group between WMO and IOC, the Marine Hydrophysical Institute of Ukraine, and Flanders Marine Institute in Dutch, Vlaams Instituut voor de Zee. Just a small introduction on VLIZ. So we're a marine institute. We're located in Ostend, Belgium. We don't do any research ourselves, but support marine researchers all over Flanders, Belgium, and Europe even. And we also support the IODE initiative, IOC and UNESCO, and we host the Flanders Marine Data Center. So a picture of the harbor of Ostend. We're located here together with UNESCO and soon part of the European Science Foundation, the Marine Board, will also join us in June. So what is the virtual lab? Virtual lab will be a computing environment collecting data, models, and interfaces needed to run hydrodynamic models for training and research. Now, what are hydrodynamic models? Hydrodynamic models like POM predict water currents, wave heights, ocean circulations, basically the movement of water masses and all that is carried by it, so nutrients and so on. These water movements are caused by wind, temperature, atmospheric pressure, and these meteor parameters are called the forcing data because they make the water column move. These movements are then deviated by land masses and shallow waters. The models can be used in forecasting mode, also called operational mode, when they are using predictive meteorological parameters. And these are important, for example, for the safety at sea. Predicting wave heights is very important for that. They can also be used in hindcasting or using parameters that were collected in the past and that were corrected based on sensors that are installed at sea. And this is then mainly used for research or training. Now, to run models, you need modeling software. A good example is the POM or the Princeton ocean model. You need forcing data, as explained, and one known source for it is NCEP, which is from NOAA and has meteorological predictions for all over the world, free data. You need bathymetry. You need to know how deep the water is at certain location and where the land masses are. And a known database for this is called eTopo. Then you also need powerful computers, visualization software, expertise and training. Now there are some known problems with models, not so much for the experts, but for the researchers and people being trained, the occasional users of models. The software is difficult. It runs on Linux, which for most of you is no problem, but for other people it is. Mainly command line mode. The software, if you want to run the software, you need to edit Fortran code. You need to recompile the model. You need to install viewers that you usually don't use for anything else, like grads. It takes a lot of time to prepare the data. NCEP data, for example, needs to be downloaded. It's very big. You need quite some bandwidth, which is not everywhere in the world available. It needs to be reformatted. That takes a lot of time. Bathymetry needs to be extracted for the region that you want to run the model. Also, it's very computer intensive, as said. The reformatting of data is computer intensive, the running of the model. So we came up with these different parts to a possible solution, namely the virtual lab, where we will have experts install the models. We will provide powerful hardware. We will make use of grid computing feasible. We'll try to make the software user-friendly, develop easier interfaces, program batch jobs for downloading and reformatting the data. So the user that needs to run the models can just start having all the data available at that time. And we want to make the virtual lab available through internet. I haven't mentioned this yet, but the main users for this will probably be people in developing countries. Eastern Europe not being developing country, but not having also in some cases the necessary bandwidth and computing power. They're also in there. So, a bit more technical now. How we will build the system? We identified some building blocks. Here data providers are just the Met offices that provide the forcing data, as explained. Oceanographic data centers, which provides bathymetry. The clients who will be using the virtual lab. They will need to authenticate using name, password, or certificates. We would like to make it open, whether they use Windows, Mac, or Unix machines. The software needed should be, if the interfaces get developed correctly, only an internet browser. But for the researcher who will need access to the models, he'll probably need some SSH connection, FTP, VNC, or X-Window software. Another building block is the grid network. The network I'm referring to is a network started through the EGE project in Belgium. A part of it is called BGrid, and we are a partner in that. And I also mention here the IDE computers from the training room. We have about 25 computers in the training room that are doing nothing most of the time, so we'd like to make them available on the grid for this kind of applications. We will need to set up some way of getting the data from the data providers. We imagine having scripts in Perl, PHP, Python, running unattended several times a day, downloading the data from the providers, extracting and reformatting the data to different formats needed. For example, the NCEP data comes in large files which predict, I don't know if it's the whole world of half of it, but to run your model, for example, for the North Sea, you only need a piece of it. You can even only use a piece of it. So you need to extract that data. Now, if we build the jobs this way, that the data for the North Sea, for the Black Sea, for the Mediterranean Sea, for West Indian Ocean is extracted and made available, it will save bandwidth, it will save processing power, and that's the job of these data collectors. If appropriate, if appropriate and possible, we'll try to run them also on the grid network. We'll need to store the data. Normal stuff, NFS, FTP service, databases running, database servers running MySQL, GIS databases, some coupled disks is actually what we use here for our part of the grid computers. Interfaces we are thinking of are Linux systems, in the sense that the clients can log on to them. We will have, depending on the interface that is talking to these different access protocols, SSH, HTTP. And as mentioned, if possible, web pages should simplify the process of running the models and submit jobs on the grid and use to visualize the results. Technically not so difficult, just that these models, as I explained, are made for being recompiled. So the process of parameterizing them for a certain region will probably be quite some work. Just to make sure, so we're talking about these components on internet. Oh, I will quickly go. These are the protocols running on between the different processes here. I won't go into details. So we identified some candidate models for this. This was during the JCOM IOD Jamboree that was last held in October. The extratropical storm surge model from the Norwegian Meteorological Institute is a model that predicts how high the water level is rising as a consequence of storms. Depending on barometric pressure and wind, you get the water that is elevating. You know of accidents that have happened in the past. So it's for safety, it's a very important model. Wave prediction model from basically also the Norwegian Meteorological Institute. Tropical storm surge model from Thailand, and the circulation model for the Black Sea, which will be our first step for the virtual lab. We'll start with that because we have a project between VLIZ and MHI in Ukraine. It's a POM-based model, POM that I just explained, and you need to know that running a high-resolution model POM for the Black Sea is very computer-intensive. Give an example of if you use a 5-kilometer grid resolution, it will take hours. If you take a 1-kilometer resolution, it will actually take days to do the calculations. So one of the approaches that they proposed was to use a nested model, running a low-resolution model for the whole of the Black Sea, and then using the result of this as an input for higher resolution models in smaller regions of the Black Sea. I'll show you in a minute. And we found that an ideal setup for using grid computing, in the sense that whereas the model, the oceanographic model itself is calculating a matrix, it's very difficult to run such a job on a grid. But in this nested model setup, we can define different jobs for each region, and these are independent jobs. So it's much easier to launch these on the grid. To give an example, that's a slide from MHI actually, explaining more or less what will happen. So based on atmospheric models and remote sensing data, the basin scale, the low resolution circulation model will be calculated, giving sea surface elevation, how much the water is rising at certain parts, giving current velocities, and giving seawater temperature and salinity. Temperature and salinity are very important for the movement of water masses, because they make up the density of the water. The water density is a direct consequence of temperature and salinity. So as you see, the low resolution model will then be used for these different parts that they have identified in Georgia, Russia, the Krim region, Bulgaria, Romania. Just to show you what the result is of such the Black Sea resolution model. In this case, it's showing the current velocity. We've did some research and found that the POM model itself should be linearly scalable up to 10 or 16 CPUs, depending on the parameters that you choose for running it. Now, we thought that the best solution for us would be to run that on dual quad-core CPU systems having 8 GB. Why? Because that would probably require from us the least effort to run the model. If we go to higher CPU systems, we either need to run the model using MPI, which is not completely supported for POM. There are some MPI implementations, but they are not, as we found, not yet available for the systems that we can purchase. And the regional models, that's an example of a regional model for Calamita Bay, which is on the Krim region. You see, so the results of the models will be for each location, sorry, for each location and each timestamp a certain value. That's an example of it. Now, for the regional models, we thought of we counted our money, and we found that we can buy about 5 of these dual quad-core CPU systems. So we would be able to run 5 of these regional models in parallel. Planning, short term, we will be installing the equipment starting half of 2007. Install the G-Lite middleware. We have, for the moment, only an LCG 2.4 middleware running, which is a bit outdated. So we will have the people from Belnet assist us in installing this. Install the existing models, meaning the existing software for these models. where by the end of 2007 we should be able to have some people have a look at the POM software and see if they can make it run under MPI. That's something that will happen in Ukraine. Make the models grid-enabled. It sounds easy because we talked about, I just explained that these models can run in parallel, independently of each other, but they tend to expect that the data is stored in a certain directory and so on, so these little things need to be solved before you can actually make them run. By the beginning of 2008, we would like to have the model running in semi-operational forecasting mode for these different regions. And then in parallel, somewhere where we can contact other experts, we will start the same exercise for other models. Hopefully start with Norwegian Meteorological Institute because they're very interested in participating in this. That was it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've got time for some questions.
Good afternoon. What I would like to know is, you mentioned that essentially you're planning to install the G-Lite middleware. My question is whether you intend, or maybe you say that I didn't get it, I'm sorry, but you intend to join a larger infrastructure or a specific testbed or your own testbed or the LCG in general. I mean, I didn't get this point. I understand that you have an issue on porting your application to the middleware itself, but then I don't know what are your plans for, say, the longer term or the permanent structure. I
went very fast through that. We are actually part of BGrid, which is part of the EGE project. So our systems, the small systems that we have, are already available for the grid. The G-Lite installation is just because we have LCG running for the moment, and upgrading that to G-Lite is too difficult. So we will, with this new hardware that we purchase, we will install G-Lite and stop the older machines, start up the new machines.
You have your own virtual organization?
No. No. We don't have any virtual organization for this. It's maybe a good idea in the near future, but not yet.
Any other questions? No more questions? Right, well, thank you very much. So I'll introduce the second speaker now. She is Jill Davies, who works for the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation in the UK. Jill's talk is going to be about video conferencing from the city halls in Glasgow. Jill is her job title is Senior Interactive Development Producer. She's an experienced senior producer in radio production and also new media with the BBC, which means she has experience of developing web, mobile, interactive TV, interactive radio discussion content. She's going to be talking about the use of video conferencing at Glasgow City Halls, which are a centre for music, performance and education. And we'll be showing how video conferencing is being used to interact in innovative new ways with various audiences or interlocutors of the city halls.
Hello, thanks for coming along today. I was at a Tarina meeting last year, and I was quite amazed to see everybody typing away in laptops as people were speaking. So I'm glad I had that experience then to prepare me for seeing you all doing exactly the same thing here. So I'm here to talk about video conferencing from the City Halls in Glasgow. I'll start off by telling you what the City Halls is. Then I'll talk about a video conference pilot I've been working on with players from the BBC Scottish Symphony Orchestra. I'll tell you about some other initiatives that have been taking place via video conference from the City Halls, and then I'll tell you what we'd like to do in the future. And if at any point I'm speaking too quickly, please just tell me and I'll slow down. So I'm Jill Davis, as Dale said, the Senior Interactive Development Producer for the BBC Scottish Symphony Orchestra, which has got to be one of the longest job titles in the BBC. I've got to do something about that. I've been working at the City Halls with the orchestra since July last year, and the City Halls is Glasgow's Centre for Music. It's an absolutely fantastic place for music performance in Glasgow. There are two performance spaces. One is the main hall, which hosts mainly orchestral performances, and the other space is the Old Fruit Market, and it hosts a whole range of events from dance, theatre, music concerts, to recently it held a draw for the UEFA Cup final. There's also an ICT suite, which has a bank of computers with music composition software and editing software for audio and video, and rehearsal rooms for the musicians who are working in the building, and it also has studios for music education. Now, apart from the BBC Scottish Symphony Orchestra, which I will refer to from now on as the SSO, because that's another mouthful, apart from them, the other partners associated with the building are Glasgow Cultural Enterprises, which manages the building and also runs the Celtic Connections Music Festival, which takes place in venues around Glasgow every year. It's a huge winter festival, and it features Scottish artists and international artists from the traditional and world music scenes. The Youth Music Officer from Glasgow Education Services is based in the building, and he works on music education projects with school children in Glasgow. The Scottish Music Centre is based in the building. It's a drop-in centre for musicians from a whole range of backgrounds. And there's the Scottish Chamber Orchestra, which, like the SSO, performs in the main hall and also uses the ICT suite and the studios for music education. Now, when I started in this job last year, one of the remits they gave me was to look at how technology can extend the reach of the partners' learning programmes. So the first thing that struck me was you've got 3 national organisations cited in this building: the Scottish Symphony Orchestra, the Scottish Music Centre, and the Scottish Chamber Orchestra. And the first thing I wanted to do was to allow these partners reach out to their audiences out with the Central Belt in Scotland, so out with Glasgow and Edinburgh. And I was talking to one of my friends, and he told me about the work that the New World Symphony are doing over internet too. The New World Symphony is a postgraduate college for music students who want to go on and have careers as orchestral musicians. It's based in Miami, but what they offer their students is access to experts and maestros all around the States and even internationally via video conferencing using the Internet 2 network. So, for example, a student who's studying violin in Miami may have a master class with a maestro who plays with the San Francisco Symphony Orchestra. The director of New World Symphony, Michael Tilson Thomas, has also taken part in conducting master classes via video conference over Internet 2. They also run seminars and music rehearsals via video conference. So I was really impressed by this, and I thought, oh, wouldn't it be fantastic if we could do something the same for the orchestra? So my first port of call was to contact Learning Teaching Scotland. They're responsible for the development of the curriculum in Scotland. And I asked them if any of the schools in Scotland were using video conferencing as a teaching tool. And I found out that they are. It's used for a whole range of learning exercises. For example, teachers in the Highlands and Islands in Scotland find it's easier, more cost-effective and less time-consuming to take part in training seminars via video conference. Students who want to study Gaelic, maybe they're at a school in the mainland that doesn't have a Gaelic teacher within the school, they can take part in Gaelic lessons with other schools where they do have Gaelic teachers. Schools have also been working with national institutions like the Museum of Scotland and the Lighthouse, the Centre for Design in Scotland. They've been working on projects with them via video conference. But the one project that really stood out for me was the fact that there's a school in Dumfries and Galloway Local Authority that's offering musical instrumental tuition via video conference. So I went down to the school to check it out to see what it was all about, and I was really impressed. The music tutor is based in St Teresa's Primary School, and he gives lessons via video conference to pupils in 4 outlying primary schools. The quality is superb. The pupils didn't seem at all fazed by the technology. And the fact is that these pupils wouldn't have got instrumental tuition otherwise, because the local authority couldn't pay for the music teacher to do the 200-mile round trip between all the schools. So, you know, the technology was really enabling these children to learn an instrument. So I went back to the director of the SSO in Glasgow and said, can we set up a pilot video conference where players from the orchestra take sessions with schools all around Scotland? And he said, well, what's that about? And I said, well, to paraphrase a well-known beer company, we would be refreshing the schools in Scotland that other orchestras can't reach. So he said, okay, off you go ahead. So we set up, we decided that we'd do 2 separate sessions. One for primary school children, aged 9 and 10 years. That's a sort of fun, informative introduction to orchestral music and orchestral players. And the second secondary school sessions would be more a sort of traditional masterclass for children aged 15 and 16 years who were studying instruments to a higher level, to either standard grade or higher level. So the participating schools, with the help of Learning Teaching Scotland, we picked these schools. Actually, I'll show you where they are on the map because it gives you a better idea how far away they are. They're Papdale Primary in Orkney, Castle Bay Primary on Barra, that's in the Western Isles, Bowmore Primary on Islay, and Islay High School on Islay, and St Teresa's Primary in Dumfries and Galloway. That's the school that we're already using video conferencing to teach musical instruments. I forgot to mention Kirkball Grammar School in Orkney, they're taking part as well. So the primary school sessions, players from the woodwind section of the orchestra were really keen to take part in the sessions. So for the first session we brought in an animateur, which is just a fancy name for a presenter because I wasn't sure how the players would get on presenting themselves. So in the first session they talked about their instruments, they played short pieces of music, they asked the children to give them questions during the session, which they did. And at the end of it, the oboist showed the children how to make a reed from a plastic drinking straw. So we sent the teachers worksheets how to do this, and that was basically their homework for the second session. We said, have your reeds prepared for the second session by the time we come back. So for the second session, we got rid of the animateur. We realised that the players could lead the sessions themselves, and we augmented the trio to make it into a woodwind quartet. So during the second session, the players introduced their second instruments, the cor anglais, the contrabassoon, the bass clarinet and the piccolo. And I remember one of the funniest questions, there was a wee boy in Isla, as soon as the bassoonist started playing the contrabassoon, his hand shot up and he asked, why does your instrument sound like a car starting up? So, really quite funny. So at the end of the second session, what we did was we got the pupils to bring out their plastic straws and play along with the players in the orchestra as they played the Blue Danube. So you can imagine the part where they played the straws. Now, they weren't really playing along because of the latency. What we did was we turned down the sound from the remote end in the studio in the City Hall. So as far as the children were concerned, they were playing along, which is the main thing. For the third session in the pilot project, the learning manager of the orchestra was very keen that the players were given the chance to meet the children face to face as well. So what we decided to do was take the players out to the schools that they had been video conferencing with. We've only done one of these sessions so far. In fact, it was only last week. I took the clarinet player and the flute player to Barra, and my colleague took the oboe player and the bassoon player to Isla. And we worked on a composition with both schools in the morning where they had to compose a piece of music based on the chord progression in Pachelbel's canon. And then in the afternoon, we got the two schools to video conference their performances to one another. I've got a clip of that I'll show you shortly. So the secondary school sessions were led by Simon Johnson, the SSO's principal trombonist. In the first session, he played short pieces for the pupils, listened to their playing, commented on their playing, and also talked about what it was like to be an orchestral musician. And just to highlight one of the problems that we had with the first session with Isla, I didn't realise the technician wasn't in the room at the time, and I asked for the camera to be moved because we couldn't see the children properly. So it was the music tutor who was there. So instead of using the remote control to move the camera, he just walked up to the codec and grabbed the camera and pulled it down and broke the connection. So we couldn't see the children, but they could see us. So we decided to carry on because they could see us, and that was what mattered. So fortunately, we didn't have the same problems with Orkney. For the second session, we introduced sight reading. We sent the pupils pieces of music just very, very shortly before the session was due to begin. And Simon was keen to concentrate on that because sight reading skills are such a vital part of being a musician in an orchestra, because you have to learn pieces of music at very short notice. So again, like the primary schools, Simon will visit the secondary schools as well. We're fortunate in that the orchestra play at the St Magnus Festival in Orkney each June. So both the woodwind players and Simon will be in Orkney anyway, so they can visit both the secondary school pupils and the primary school pupils. As I say, we've already been to Barra and Isla, and we'll be going to Dumfries. Simon will be going to Isla in the very near future. So rather than talk about these anymore, I shall show you some clips of what we've been doing. Oh, that's not it. If you bear with me a second. Sorry about this, I'll find it in a minute. Sorry.
Double click on that and it should come up. Now go to the video command.
Actually, what I'll do is I'll keep on talking. I wonder if that guy could come back and have a look at it. Sorry about that. I do have some clips. If we can get it working, hopefully I'll be able to show you them again at the end. At the moment, we're video conferencing using ISDN 6, which I know isn't ideal, but that's all we have from the city halls at the moment. And the ISDN lines in the city halls are actually back up to BBC broadcast lines, so we're not paying for the rental of the lines. The rental's already covered. All we're paying for is the phone calls that we make. And as a comparison, the cost of sending the players to Barra and Isla was round about £1,000, and the cost of doing a half-hour video conference from the city halls to either of the schools is £5.40. So you can see it's very cost effective. The schools themselves, we chose these schools that took part in the pilot because they are video conferencing over ISDN 6 as well. There were some other schools who were using ISDN 4 or even ISDN 2, and we just felt the quality just wouldn't be good enough for what we want to do. So in the very near future, I hope that we'll have a fast connection from the city halls that will enable us to increase the quality of the video conferences we're doing at the moment. I'll just keep on talking. Yeah, just some of the other initiatives that, the other thing I wanted to say was in Scotland, brilliant. I can show you the clips now. Thank you very much. So the first clip is Simon and a pupil in Orkney. That's the principal trombonist.
Can I stop you? Is that all right? I think you're doing really well. Do you know what all these? There's like the saraband, jig, minuet. Do you know what they all are? They're all dances. They're all designed to be danced to. I think you'd need about 3.5 legs to dance to that at the minute.
Cruel, isn't it? Cruel. The next clip is the first video conference we did with the school in Barra, Castle Bay Primary School in Barra. So this is just a couple of minutes from the closing of that. All this business is a round of applause, that's why they're all clapping like that. So the final clip is from the session we did last week in the schools in Barra and Isla. The first girl talks about Miss Laumers, Barry and Ewan. That's her teacher. Barry and Ewan are the players from the orchestra who were there.
Miss Laumers, Barry and Ewan all took groups of people to play the fiddle, tin whistle.
And stop. Like that.
We had to perform in front of the Islay school.
You can see the equipment they've got in the school in Isle is pretty basic.
And they made a song, but we didn't understand. It was We're from Islay, Hello Barra. They played the xylophone and somebody
the,
played the clarinet.
and played Twinkle Twinkle. Barry played Scotland the Brave,
Yeah.
which everybody clapped.
So that just gives you an idea of what we've been doing with the schools. I'll just zip through these. I talked about that. Some of the other video conferencing that we've been doing from the city halls, word has got about now that we have this equipment. And in January this year, the National Youth Choir of Scotland contacted me to ask if they could use the equipment to audition children who were living in Orkney and Stornoway. And of course I said yes. So they came in, the choir master listened to the children singing and accompanied, and then he accompanied them on the piano as they sang scales, and he was very impressed. He said, I think it was the quality, the sound quality anyway, it was as good as the quality on the CDs that he'd received from the children beforehand. So it was fantastic that we could offer this resource, because to travel from Stornoway and to travel from Orkney to Inverness, which is as far north as the National Youth Choir of Scotland go to audition children, it's, you know, the cost would put many families off, so a lot of children would be denied the experience, because a flight from Orkney to Inverness is in the region of about £200, so if you had maybe 2 children, you can imagine how expensive that would be. We also took part in a video conference that John Adams, the American composer John Adams, did from the LSO St Luke's Centre in London. That's the London Symphony Orchestra's Discovery Centre. And it was thanks to the people at the Janet Joint Video Conference Service that we can take part in video conferences like this, because we connect to their bridge and then they connect us out to other centres. We were one of 8 centres in the UK taking part in that discussion, mainly music colleges. We hosted some students from Glasgow University's music department, and also students from a lot of secondary schools in Glasgow. They came into the city halls to take part in the discussion. And we're hoping to do something similar with Sir Colin Davis, the conductor from the LSO St Luke's in October this year. I forgot to say at the John Adams conference, one of the other centres was the Eastman School of Music in New York, and the school pupils and the students who were in the city halls couldn't believe that there was a centre on the other side of the world taking part in this discussion. They were really impressed with that. So we hope to do the same with the video conference with Sir Colin Davis. We'll be hosting our own conference with Jonathan Harvey, the SSO's composer in association, in the summer. One of his works is being performed at the Proms. So in the future, I hope to be able to use a new service that Janet are going to be providing, and we can use this service to promote the events that we have coming up. But I know that Tim and Rob are going to talk about that shortly. So what we'd like to do in the future is, first of all, evaluate the feedback. So far it's been really good from the primary schools and the teachers. One of the teachers said to me that it was so good we were doing this work in the islands at the north of Scotland, because the children in these areas are so steeped in traditional music and they don't often get the chance to hear orchestral musicians perform. We want to reach more schools, and I'm really keen to encourage the other BBC performing groups to use video conference for their learning projects. There are 4 other BBC orchestras and the BBC singers, and I've already spoken to them about it, and I know that Tim and I are going to have a meeting with them as well, just to talk about what they could do using video conferencing. build and sustain relationships with the international communities visited by the SSO. The orchestra are touring in China next year, so I'm really keen that we video conference with schools before we get there, and the players can visit the schools once they're there in person. And also once they come back, they can keep in touch with the schools via video conference. And last but not least, help the City Hall's partners develop their video conferencing programmes as well. I was talking to Kim from Dante earlier on. What I'm really keen to do is to encourage the musicians who are taking part in the Celtic Connections Music Festival next year to video conference with schools in Glasgow and in Europe while they're in the City Halls. So that's about it for me. I'll leave you with my contact details, and please feel free to get in touch if you have any questions, and all offers of help and advice are gratefully received as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jill, for a fascinating presentation. Can you hear me all right? Yeah, it's better. Thank you very much, Jill, for a fascinating presentation. And even though I'm biased because I come from Scotland myself, I think it was really interesting. Are there any questions?
Thank you for the fascinating talk.
You're welcome.
One thing I was wondering about, all the scenes that you showed were either kids playing to other people, or there was something to some playing together at very slow tempo. And I would imagine that the delay introduced by video conferencing would make playing together quite impossible. Is that so?
Yes, it is at the moment, but you know, as I said, what we did was we turned the sound down at our end when the players were playing. So at the remote end, the children were playing along to what they heard and saw on the screen. So as far as they're concerned, they are playing along. I mean, it's cheating, you know.
Yes.
But I think there are certain types of music that would lend itself, if you could take into account that delay. For example, freeform jazz, you know, you could perhaps, I don't know how you would do it, but I've heard people talking about it before. But at the moment, you know, the speed of light makes it quite impossible.
The form I was thinking most about was classical duet.
Yes, yeah.
And I don't know if there's any experimentation in how much delay you could tolerate and still play together.
I'm really not sure. I think the people who have most experience in this are internet too, as far as I'm aware at the moment.
I may have an input here. I've been on a workshop in SurfNet a few years ago, and they were explaining how to make people play together, the cello on one side, and I think it was two cellos, one on Japan and the other on the Netherlands. And the delay was inevitable because the speed of light on the wire it's undoable. And I think that what they did was they had digital timers that the musicians used to make the tempo. And what they did was they delayed the timers on each side so that when they saw the tempo, they would be synchronized with the remote.
Ah, right.
So they were playing with their tempo, but it was delayed for the other and vice versa. So they were playing together, but with this kind of technique.
Yeah. Was that SurfNet you said that were? Yeah.
Thanks for mentioning it, Joa. It's called the Internet Metronome. It was developed by the Japanese, and it works pretty well, but it's still a trick. So they're still not hearing each other, and based on that feedback, playing back. The maximum delay that can be afforded for this purpose is 12 milliseconds. And that's very short. You can only reach that if you use uncompressed video on a national scale LAN. If you have a small country like the Netherlands, we are 3 milliseconds wide by 5 milliseconds high, so that's achievable.
Thanks.
Yes, exactly, the same kind of comment that Eric was doing. There is an activity doing this kind of experiments for real-time playing together. And of course, there's nothing to do, the speed of light is the speed of light. Yeah. And within the country, you can do it. Maybe, well, the people of the music high school in Trieste claim they're trying to make it within the continent, so 20 millisecond delay. But the big problem is not the network, it's the electronics, capturing the sound and the image and sending it in. So the very fast encoders, without compression, but the very fast encoders up to now are to 50 milliseconds. Then you need to send them out to the network. And that is the bottleneck, not the network anymore. It used to be the opposite. Now the challenging is in making it work in the electronics. So they are making experiments. They are trying to build hardware which is able to send from the real life down to the computer and the network in less than 20 milliseconds, but it's a challenge.
Right. If you have any documentation on that, I'd be really interested in having a look at it. Thanks.
First, I'd like to sort of thank you for a very interesting talk. And the issue of latency is a major one because I'm from Australia, so of course we're a long way away from Europe and the US. But actually recently, and I'm not sure whether James Tizard, there he is, he's the expert, but James orchestrated a launch by the sort of Minister for Education and the State Premier recently. And the highlight of the launch was a duet, which I'll pass the microphone across to James, who I see you sitting here, where he had a flute and a clarinet player at about 40, 50 kilometres apart playing a duet, and it really went across very well. But even then, I think the technical challenges, even over a short distance, were significant.
Right, thanks.
We had two music students performing. Yeah, they performed a couple of, I think it was a Bach duet and another one. The latency was about 30 milliseconds, and they argued with each other. They kept saying, you're playing a bit behind, you're playing a bit behind, but they didn't really ever stop enough to worry about the technology. It's on our website. I can give you, there's film clips of them both playing. We use technology that is developed for the film post-production industry, which is specifically for basically using your network as a big long extension cord between a camera and a monitor, and it works. It's supposed to work over DWDM, but it'll certainly work over dark fibre up to, you know, whatever you can drive it at. But it's good enough for, it's basically room type echo.
Right.
It works beautifully, yeah.
Again, I'd be really interested in, you know, maybe having a chat with you about that.
Yeah.
Excellent, thanks.
No worries.
Hi, yeah, another familiar accent here perhaps. There was, I've got one observation and a question for you. The observation was that there was a European project which finished last year called the iMaestro project, which was headed up by the University of Leeds and the University of Florence, and I had a small involvement in that project, and they were developing a whole suite of sort of e-learning and multimedia tools for music education specifically.
All right.
So that could be something you want to look at. And the question, I guess, was a sort of sociological one, which was, how important did you think that the video streaming actually was? Because you would imagine that the audio would be the thing that the students focused on the most.
Yes, I think for the players, the audio was the most important. But for the pupils, I've talked to them about this, and you know, it's just as important for them to be able to see you know, the players. In fact, when we went to Barra and Isla last week, the pupils were just as much interested in talking to one another. They'd never video conferenced between schools before. So they found this fascinating, you know, that they could talk to these pupils in Isla and vice versa. So I think for the pupils, the video is important, but certainly for the players, it was the audio straight away, and also the choir master at the National Youth Choir of Scotland. The audio, you know, was the most important. Thanks. I'd be interested in finding out about the project.
Any more questions? No? Well, can we thank Jill again for her presentation then, please?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Right, the third presentation is a joint presentation by Rob Thimberlist and Tim Boundy from Ukraine. They're going to be talking about their initiatives encouraging collaboration between schools in the UK. So Jill's presentation was a specific example of the more general work that they're doing. So Rob is the UK Schools Strategy Group Manager for Ukraine. And he liaises with various parties involved in providing networks for schools. He has a background in engineering and numerical methods and modelling. Tim is the school's content coordinator and is involved in the delivery of educational content online and via video conferencing, and is a physicist and space scientist by trade originally. So Rob and Tim, when we have slides, we'll hand over to you.
Thank you. Okay. As Dale said, I'm Rob Thimberlist from Janet, which will be the new name from a couple of weeks' time. And that will be the brand throughout the network and the company. We're going to talk to you today about something that really complements what Jill was talking about. We're going to split our presentation into two parts. The first part is about Rocket, which is the old Rock Idol project. Unfortunately, they had to change the name from Rock Idol because a company in the States took umbrage at the use of the idol part of the Rock Idol name. So they changed it to Rock IT or Rocket. And I'm just going to show you a brief video in a moment which highlights exactly how this all works, and to encourage you to go back to your countries and participate in what is now becoming an international project. So, how are we doing? Seem to have broken the... just to give you a bit of background about how we've been supporting organisations like the BBC Symphony Orchestra. Over the last 3 or 4 years, we've been running a series of pilots and projects to bring video conferencing to schools throughout the UK. And this has been funded by initially the Department for Education and Skills in England, and then in 2006-07 by the Welsh Assembly Government, the Scottish Executive, the DFES again, and also C2K in Northern Ireland. So this has become a completely UK-wide service. And we're running at about something like 60% of the schools that have video conferencing in the UK are now members of the national service and are able to video conference with one another and internationally. Clearly, I'd prefer you to show you some slides. Okay. So we've been working very closely with organisations like the BBC Symphony Orchestra, and Tim, who joined us in September, has been focusing on liaising with content providers, particularly museums and galleries, and bringing those onto the Janet network so that they can deliver to schools. It's quite interesting that the cultural sector is actually poorly served in terms of connectivity, And we see that as a new marketplace for us, in a sense, to pull together the wider community, the wider education community in the UK and internationally. So we see Janet as a very, very good platform for the cultural sector to work with schools, universities and colleges. And the latter half of the talk, Tim is going to talk about a new collaboration service that we're putting together, not just for schools, although it has been born out of the video conferencing project, but it's also for universities and colleges throughout the UK and internationally, if other countries wanted to take part. I perhaps could, at this point, highlight the BOF session that we had last night, which was very successful in that we managed to find out that there were quite a few other countries that were doing similar projects and that also had other well-established services already. For instance, in Australia, they already have a well-established collaboration service throughout the whole of education. And also in SurfNet, it's been going for a few years. We've been working very closely with Internet2 in developing new services, and we're hoping to develop some sort of de facto standard of interoperability so that all of the different collaboration services can in fact exchange data. So that if you're in let's say, the UK and you want to find an event that is going on in let's say, France or Germany, you can just cross-search the databases and find the events. And perhaps video conference or use some other sort of means of collaboration. Seem to have video now, or at least video picture. There's no signal here. Nothing here.
No, I can't do better now. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I'll work off the screen. Okay. Is there audio as well? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I've really summarised this slide already. We're going to focus in two parts. The first part is about the rocket project, which is becoming an international project. And then we're going to highlight the national services that underpin that, and then move forward and talk about the new collaboration service. So this is the background to the National Video Conferencing Services. You can see that we started this in 2003 and built up gradually. And we've got to the stage now where we've got about 2,200 schools connected to the national service using it actively. So you can see this is a graph of take-up throughout the pilot and project over the last 3.5 years. And you can see that we're at about 2,200 schools, and we're actually nearing 8,000 video conferences since the start of this project. Okay, so you can see the take-up. And this is the usage. This is the monthly usage chart per school year. And you can see that the lower graph is 2004-05, and then the middle one is 2005-06. And you can see that we peaked in March this year at 850 video conferences just between schools or in the school sector in the UK, which is running at about, 200 a week or something like that. So the service is being used extensively, and we're now talking about how we can scale it even further to accommodate even more video conferences. But the national service provides 5 MCUs on our core, which are all scheduled by the Janet Video Conferencing Service Management Centre, but there's also a service which provides ad hoc video conferencing called Janet On Demand. So, the Rock Idol 2006, and in fact it started in 2005, as you'll see from the video, it was very, very successful in 2006, nationwide, and I'll show you the example in a moment, but in 2007 they're hoping to make this international. It tends to happen in the latter half of the year, so if you know anyone who's got new bands emerging and you want to get them exposed on the internet, then this is the place to do it. And this sort of complements very nicely what Jill's been doing with the symphony orchestras. Okay, this is the latest website, the 2007 website. And you can see that they've got blogging, and there's chat as well. And the way it works is that they initially submit a video of their band playing, and then they, for the heats and the finals, they actually do it by live video conferencing. So the judges are in one location, and the bands are all across the country delivering via video conferencing to the judges. So the judges can view live, remotely, the performances. So I'll just show you this video clip. Oh, I'll just take you through this. There we are. This presentation, the URL to this presentation is available later on. Oops. It's that one, isn't it?
Where pupils who were involved in rock bands in secondary schools could perform live over a video conference link to a panel of judges. The idea of the Rock Idol competition was an opportunity for pupils to showcase their work in a very meaningful context to an audience of peers. The idea of using the video conferencing was that the pupils would perform in front of a live video conference link an original performance for 3 minutes to a panel of judges. The panel of judges would then provide a 3-minute feedback to the rock group, and at the end of the process would award a first, second, third place. And in fact this year we had a highly commended place as well. What we found was that the standard of the competitors was extremely high, and the judging panel genuinely did have a difficult job on their hands. We had over 40 entries for the competition from around the West Midlands, and on the day 14 schools performed live to the panel of judges sitting in the City Learning Centre in the north of Birmingham, and also they performed to a live stream to the internet and also to a large plasma screen based in the centre of Birmingham. One of the features that was particular about this year's Rock Idol was the use of a voting system on the Birmingham grid for learning. Pupils were able to vote for their favourite group, to send in comments about their favourite group, and also to text comments. The idea of that system was that the pupils would be able to engage with the judges and to influence their decision. Once the pupils had given their performance, they were given 3 minutes of feedback from the panel of judges, which was a great experience for pupils to get genuine critical appraisal of their work. One of the major impacts for the pupils performing was the fact that over the internet they were able to receive comments from their peers in different schools around the region, and it was interesting to reflect on how often pupils had the opportunity to be appraised by fellow pupils in that way. So the use of the internet there was very significant and added another dimension in terms of the learning experience that the pupils went through. In the context of Digital Birmingham, Rock Idol represents just one model amongst many. So Rock Idol is very significant in showcasing what is possible through video conferencing. Following the success of Rock Idol 2005, plans are already underway for Rock Idol 2006, which next year will be a national competition. So we look forward to having an even higher level of entry and performance than we saw this year.
Okay, so I just need to go back to that Breeze presentation. You can see the key thing there is that the pupils themselves are delivering the content. This is absolutely key. We shouldn't think of content providers as just museums and galleries and distance learning providers. It's actually the schools that are delivering the content as well. and creating it. So I'd just like to highlight how you can get involved, or how you can get your schools involved in this. There's the URL, and if you want to contact the organiser, it's jeanmond@wmnet.org.uk. In fact, Jean was going to provide this presentation but wasn't able to, so we agreed to step in and help her out in this respect. So the full presentation is available online, and you can go and view the video and see exactly what's happening with this fantastic competition. This is just one of the national video conferencing projects that the regional broadband consortia in England and also the other countries of the UK are building up. These are fantastic projects, and they're using the national service as much as they possibly can now. So, moving back to presentation. So really the point we're now at is that we want to provide an environment where those who need to find others to video conference with, those who want to collaborate with other people, they need somewhere where they can go and find everybody else, people with like minds, people with similar interests. And so we've been looking at the development of a collaboration service for a couple of years actually, but we took we actually started specifying something towards the end of last year, and Tim is going to take us through the specification of that and highlight some of the features that we hope will be coming out soon. But just to highlight that we're targeting all of these organisations. We feel that the whole of the education sector needs to be involved in this, not just schools or colleges or universities, but everybody who's involved in receiving and delivering education. Everybody needs to be part of this and involved. Okay, so I'd like to hand over to Tim to tell us more about this.
Okay, you can all hear me? Thank you, Rob. Right. Am I glad I get to start with the PowerPoint working? It's definitely an advantage. My name's Tim Boundy. I think the space scientist bit might be a bit historical now. I'm not sure I could answer you too many questions, although all the planetary trivia is still in there. I've been working with UKERNA for about 9 months now, and specifically on this project, which we are using a working title of Janet Collaborate. The idea was, coming from the Space Centre, I was involved in delivering educational content to schools and going out and training teachers on how to work their video conference systems and the services that were out there to help them. Now working for Janet, we're going to try and solve the problem of how do they find different types of content, and how do they find who they can collaborate with, who has similar interests out there, and similar types of collaborative technology that they can use together. So what we're trying to create is a service with a few major aims that will allow the community to work together. Obviously, Rob said we thought about this 2 years ago, or rather Rob realised there was probably a good need for this 2 years ago. Since then, the internet has moved on, and I probably have the dubious honour of being one of the first presenters I've noticed so far to mention Web 2.0. Please ignore that. But I'm sure it does mean quite a lot to you about the way the internet has moved on in the last few years, and now it's much more about the last sentence there. You're no longer a user, you're a participant. And this shaped the service that we're trying to create. We initially thought we might be able to create just a directory, a list of different content providers that you could link to, find out which museum was doing this, which college offered courses to other schools over video conferencing. But we realized that the way that the internet was being used nowadays, and really what teachers and all educators expect from services online, is much more rich applications and services for them to be able to interact and work together. So we've ended up creating, or aiming to create, more or less a community of online collaborators that's hopefully going to stretch across the entire education spectrum in the UK. We've taken inspiration from some of the big names that I'm sure you'll recognise here, mainly looking at the way that they use their community and the way that they allow their community to access each other's content and share the opportunities and discussions, because this is really what we're trying to do. And I suppose you probably, this would seem familiar, but the bit I'd like to emphasize here is a lot of the Web 2.0 technologies emphasize online collaboration and sharing amongst users, and that is the real main aim of this new service. So, the Janet Collaboration Service. We've set out and we aim to allow educators to find other educators with similar educational interests and similar aims to collaborate together. Whether that's two primary school teachers who want to compare pictures that their class have drawn, or whether this is research groups working on projects together who would like to collaborate internationally. This can work right across the education spectrum. The service will hopefully help them find each other, but also offer the opportunities to collaborate as well. So if somebody wants to offer a meeting or a seminar, this type of collaboration could be posted on the service, and then other members of the service can search for their interests, find there's a seminar, and join it via Janet Collaborate. And this, of course, would also work for museums, galleries and archives, orchestras, who were offering online content to schools. They could also be classed as an opportunity and could be joined by the other members, who in this case might be teachers. The project so far is a prototype, and I'll stress this point. Right now, we are still in development. I will show you the current version of the prototype later, and I'll ask you to bear in mind that it's still being created. Some bits of it are pretty rough, but every week, new parts come online, and we can investigate them, test them, make sure they're exactly what we want. So it's at the moment very much an ongoing project. The prototype is designed to just be a focus for discussion. We really don't want to present a finished product to the community and say, there you go, use that. We'd much rather have the collaboration of the whole community in creating this project from the very beginning. Once we have piloted the prototype and allowed a wide sector of the community to actually use this, we will use the knowledge gained from this to hopefully go forward and create a full production version, full production service of Janet Collaborate. And as I said earlier, the scope of the project, which I think is slightly wider than some of the other projects out there, is to allow the prototype, initially as well, to be available to all educators. So this would be primary school teachers, right up to university professors, research institutions, and hopefully to be able to design a system, and this is the big challenge, to be able to design a system that would suit the needs of both ends of the education spectrum. We're also hoping to extend this overseas, so the scope will extend internationally, and we hope that our new working relationships and partnerships that we've struck up as recently as yesterday at the BOF, where we found a lot of other groups attempting or already using similar systems, we hope we'll be able to link at least the databases, the opportunities, the membership together to allow a lot of these collaborations to become international. So the main features of the service, what we hope to create. Most of these I'm sure you could probably guess, but we'll need to allow the members to search for each other, of course, and to find each other with similar interests, send messages to each other, communicate just via the service to arrange the collaborations, offer opportunities. You'll hear the word opportunities quite a few times in the rest of this presentation. An opportunity could be anything that anybody wants to do to collaborate, is the way we're going to be defining it here. And then also to take part in other uses of the site, form little groups amongst it, personal groups, either on topics of interest or sectors of education. Use the other tools such as the forums, the wikis, maybe chat later on, to collaborate as well. The timeline so far, you can see we're roughly just after the last one now. We're expecting delivery of the prototype, or we've received physically delivery of the prototype, and it's now hosted on the Janet network. The next few stages, we're hoping to launch probably sometime in the next month or so. This is very much a soft launch where the pilot is going to be very gently led out to the education community. We've come from the schools background, so this whole idea has come from the video conferencing in the schools community, as you probably worked out from Rob's presentation. So we are focusing on the schools at the moment, but we hope to later lead this into further education colleges and HE as well. The project board is a vital part of this project so far. We've insisted on having quite strong development and cooperation from all parts of the education sectors during the development of this. And you can see the project board is made up of members from right across the UK education. RBC managers, regional broadband consortia, who represents different local authorities of schools in different areas of the country, are obviously right on the front line of delivering educational IT services to schools, and their opinions and thoughts on this are vital to us. So we're hopefully keeping them fully appraised as we go along. Bector, of course, set policy for the RBCs and IT in schools. They've also been involved, the JISC, for the Joint Information Services Committee, as far as HE and FE goes, to make sure that we can fully use our partners there in the pilot and develop a service that they will appreciate. UKERNA, of course, running Janus and with us developing this. The Training and Development Agency for Teachers are hoping to use the service to supplement training new teachers on the job, video conferencing out to schools and teachers as they're actually working with students. We're also making sure that all the countries within the United Kingdom are represented on this. So we've got the Welsh Assembly Government, Northern Ireland, Learning and Teaching Scotland, to make sure that we can adapt the services necessary to each region. And then we want to make sure that content providers would be able to use this, because this would, of course, be a pointless service if there was no content online. So we need to make sure that some of the more experienced content providers can give us their opinions. So we have the museums, the archives, Nelson Thorns, who are a professional content provider, deliver GCSEs and A-levels educational qualifications via video conferencing. And we've also got the assistance of the Welsh Video Network and Devon Curriculum Services, who have plenty of experience in delivering educational video conferencing content to schools over the last few years. And lastly, Terena are also represented on the board, as we hope to be involving a lot of the other European countries and members of Terena in the pilot and keeping each other informed with the developments at whatever stage different countries are at. So the board has been meeting regularly about this to keep an eye on the development as it goes. And this is what we've got so far. This is roughly the latest front page. As I said, it's a prototype. Things change every day. The apple, for example, probably won't be there next time. As somebody did say, is this a dental plan? But we're going to be changing things as we go, as we receive different opinions on all types of this, on all parts of the site. I'm just quickly going to run through the specifications that we've been working from to create this. Myself and Rob, in November last year, spent a lot of time consulting all parts of the community, coming up with a fine list of specifications that we've asked the production company to to create and turn into this site. I'll be running through that, and then we'll have a look at the live version of the site and try and demonstrate a few of these features. And then I'd be very keen to hear your opinions. So, different areas of the specification. You can see these are different categories we're just going to dip into now. First one's registration. We're aware that this is a very complicated issue. Authentication has been something we've taken very seriously. However, for the prototype and to enable us just to get a service out there, we're not going to be using any type of authentication initially. However, we are in discussions, we are thinking about this a lot, and we hope to shibbolise the service as soon as possible. However, authentication, especially in England recently, has become quite a bit of a hot topic and quite a problem for a lot of similar services. So we are concentrating on that, but for the prototype, we're going to be using no type of authentication at the moment. People will be able to log in using their email and password and go through the 3-step registration. We want to make this as easy as possible. If people only want to complete the first step, just to have a look around and be able to communicate with a few of the other members, then that's fine. If they want to go a bit further, they can insert their educational interests, the topics that they might want to talk about, the specific areas they're interested in, age groups of students, their area of research. And then after that, they can also enter their collaborative technologies that they might have available to them. So they'd be able to enter, for example, the IP address of their video conferencing system and the times of day that they're allowed to use this, or their telephone number on their desk, their VoIP phone, an SMS telephone number maybe, an email address, any type of collaboration they want to use. We do have links with JVCS as well, the Janet Video Conferencing Service. As you've probably heard Rob say, we already have a couple of thousand school members of the Janet Video Conferencing Service. And all of those membership details will be available to members joining Janet Collaborate. So this hopefully will speed up the registration. This also means that they can link their Janet Collaborate profile, and kind of imagine a MySpace profile when you see that, like a list of interests and contact details. they could link their Janet Collaborate profile to their JVCS venue, their endpoint. And this allows them that when they're offering opportunities, this allows them to schedule the MCU to dial up their endpoint. I'll go more into this in a minute. But the important functionalities between JVCS and Janet Collaborate is going to make quite a bit of difference to the use of this system we're predicting. Members' profiles, probably what you'd expect here. Interests, a picture maybe. Technology is available for collaboration, so you'll be able to see who's got the same types of technologies as you and match up people to collaborate together. Presence indicators, so you can see when they were last online and how active this particular member's been. They'll be able to send messages between each other, which will then be forwarded out to their email inboxes. And a history of their activity with their recent pages they've looked at, opportunities they've offered, so that they can hopefully use the site much more easily. Catalogue of opportunities. So if we look at the site as being maybe two major chunks, we will have the members' profiles, and then we'll have the catalogue of opportunities. Any of the members can offer an opportunity. The idea is that we want to get away from the idea of a traditional content provider. It's not just a museum or a gallery or an orchestra who might be able to provide content. They may provide very high quality content that you can rely on and you know what you're going to get. But we want teachers and other educators to think of themselves as content providers as well, so that they could offer an opportunity. For example, maybe a primary school teacher might want to use the experience of another primary school teacher out there. Maybe they want to say, I want to talk about the flowers that we have in our school garden, but we've only got 3 types of flowers. Let's offer this out on Janet Collaborate. We want to talk and look at pictures of the flowers that you have in your school gardens. Please send us JPEGs, or please video your flowers, or please show us how they've been growing throughout the months. And then this kind of open opportunity could be searched and found by other teachers looking for similar kind of content. So if the opportunities can be used for education, they can also be used for projects. For example, if a research institution is having regular meetings, seminars, they could use the system too. And the opportunities can have times and dates to allow you to schedule these. We're also allowing people to choose the language that they're either delivering the opportunity in or they want to use the website in. So this hopefully will ease the international progression of Janet Collaborate and allow people to come at it from several countries. The prototype will be translated into Welsh shortly after launch, which will be the kind of test bed for using the prototype in other languages. The opportunities will come in 2 types. You can have an open-ended one, which could be no particular time and date. I want a pen pal is a good example of that. Or scheduled. And if we have a scheduled opportunity which is set to a particular time and date, this means that if the member that's offering this has their video conference system connected to their profile, and the members that are accepting this opportunity also have their video conference system linked to their profile, that opportunity, once agreed, can then automatically turn into a JVCS booking, which schedules the MCU and activates the video conferencing technology at that time. So this allows the members here to bypass the other step of going directly to the Janet video conferencing booking service and booking their MCU that way. It also provides a slightly different interface for people to use to access that functionality. Sure, yes. Okay, we're also going to have a search function to allow people to find the details they need. You can see they're going to be able to find it in different categories there. I'm going to very quickly skip to the end of this now. Some of the other tools you'd imagine. We imagine the groups function will be very powerful. You'll be able to collect together people with similar interests, message them together. Administration functions, probably what you'd expect. And lots of future developments. Once we've run the pilot, we will go to a phase 2 production, which will allow us to add all the other good ideas that people will have come up with. I'm just going to very quickly dip into the website for 1 minute here and show you the current state of the service. Okay, so you can see we've got 3 main themes, and this is actually quite similar to some of the services that already exist, with having 3 ideas here: organize, find, and share. Organize allows, we can go to my organize section. You can see that I've joined 2 opportunities here. I haven't created any, but my inbox has got several messages in it here. I'm also a member of 2 different groups, so we can have a look at that group there. This is the Janet Collaborate project team with several members listed down below. As you can see, this is still in development and some bits of it are going to be tidied up. If we have a look at some of the opportunities up there, this is the temporary search page. We'll have a look at an opportunity for the video conferencing club offered by one of the members. We can join this opportunity. You can see details there of the actual opportunity, the technology that's involved, the number of people they're expecting. As you can see, we're still developing this. A lot of the pages are going to be overhauled and redesigned. And as we go, extra features will be added. Let's quickly go to my profile there. Details of my different types of contacts. So if you want to Skype me, you can see my name's there. My video conference endpoint. Okay, now, so this is the current state of the site. We expect in a few months we'll be able to deliver the prototype and open it out to education. If you download the presentation online, you'll be able to see and visit the prototype yourself. Feel free to sign up. Just keep in mind it is still a prototype in development. But I would love to hear your thoughts on this. We are working very closely with other developments of a very similar nature, and hopefully, as the developments match each other, we'll be able to pool the database of opportunities and members and make this truly international later on. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much to both Rob and Tim for another very interesting presentation. We have overrun, but if anybody has any burning questions, I'm sure we could fit a very quick one in.
Hi.
Hello, this is Nadim Al-Khoui with Georgetown University in Qatar. My question is, have you looked at VDay, the Video Development Initiative in the States, and VDayNet and what they've done in the past in regard of this, especially to video conferencing?
I'm not very familiar with those two projects. We are in contact with Internet2 and their current project, which is called MyK20, which is at a similar state to our project, actually. But I'd be very interested to hear more about those two particular projects you mentioned there. Yeah. If you could speak to me afterwards.
Can I add to that? I was in a VDNet meeting last year in Washington, so we're familiar with what's going on there, yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, thanks very much.
Right. Thank you. Thanks everyone very much. Can I just make 3 very quick reminders? 1, evaluation forms online. 2, buses for tonight. If you need bus information, it's in the social events section of the website. And the 3rd thing is there's a poster session now where the poster authors are at their posters if you want to go and see them. Thanks very much.